Good morning. It is pretty much 10:30 a.m. It is Sunday morning, and that means it is time for Sunday Club, a weekly, hopefully weekly live stream where each week we look at some Ruby on Rails code. And we are building this, in this kind of series, an event registration and ticketing application. Let's kind of jump to the follow-up straight away. Last week did not go well. The internet connection in my home decided, having been pretty rock solid for a long time, just decided last Sunday morning that it was not into the idea of sending data to other computers. It was just like, no, thank you. And so I did nothing to fix it. It seemed to just fix itself later that day. I don't know what happened. I don't know what caused it. I think it was my network rather than my internet connection to the outside world. And basically everyone's solution seems to be rewire your house and don't use Wi-Fi, which I'm too lazy to do. So there's no follow-up. Basically, we didn't do anything last week. I haven't done anything this week, and we're going to dive straight into getting stuff done instead, because who's got time to do all of that follow-up? Let's go take a look at some code straight away. Let's get into it. So I think we wrote one line of code when we had a stream running last week, and it was basically install Pundit, I think was where we got to. But the link that's in the YouTube description I think is actually useful and worth going back over, because I didn't delete those other streams, but I did mark them as unlisted, so they're not available in the channel. There's nothing there. There's just like me complaining about the internet. So, but I think this is worth mentioning, because I think that Notion is cool enough that people who don't use it should know that it exists. So we get a few people watching the stream, and people reach out and a couple of bits of use, they kind of comment on things like, hey, I found this useful. If you're interested in new applications to help you document stuff or plan stuff, Notion is a really cool place to start. And I think that in my mind, it's like ubiquitous. Like everyone I know has kind of heard of it, and then some people I speak to, like even people in tech and stuff, I'm like, oh, Notion, maybe I've heard of it. So I'm just going to spend a couple of seconds talking about it now quickly. It is basically a block editor that allows you to be incredibly flexible in the content that you enter into it. So it has these concepts of pages. We're looking at a page called planning here. And you can kind of add, I think this might be an entire page, but you can add new pages. Let's add a new page. Okay, let's make that there. Let's add a new page. And in the page, you can basically then put a title. So this is like page title. And then it says type / for commands. And what you get are all of these blocks that you can build crap with. And each of these blocks is really powerful, weirdly. So some of them are simple, like I just want to add some text. I want to add a sub page, for example, to-do lists, headings. But when you get down to here, you can add entire databases. Like it basically is an app that has something like Trello, which is probably a bit more ubiquitous, built into it. And it's kind of not more powerful necessarily, because Trello has some pretty cool stuff in it, but calendars, all of this stuff, and it's all in the same place. So you don't have to go out and get the other information, like embed all the things. So what I'm going to do is I wanted to create a place that was publicly available where we could start to plan like upcoming stuff for the stream, because I think not last week because that fell apart, but the week before I was kind of starting just a little bit. I was like, let's go poke around. And even last week as well, I was like, right, okay, what are we actually trying to answer? What are we trying to accomplish? And previously I was saying, we want to get to an actual thing that we ship so that we can run an event and people can sign up and we can just do like, we'll be our own test case. So maybe like 2 or 3 of us can sign up for this thing. Like we'll have some software shipped, which would be pretty exciting. But the way that you get there is by actually setting a plan and having a destination to get to, because otherwise, I don't know about anyone else, but I would just keep kind of like messing around, and it's the stream, so we don't do too much diligence around here. So that's what Notion is. Highly recommend you go check it out. It's Notion, notion.so if you want to go check it out. If you haven't, there's a Mac app, there's iOS apps, Android, it's everywhere. It works great. Go check it out. So this is what I had started. I think I wrote this on last week's stream before the connection failed. So this is like questions we want to answer on this stream. And what I would like to do is get some more of these together, but actually make them maybe a bit more like a spec that we would write up to have other engineers pick up, or something like that. Because I think that would be interesting as well as the Ruby on Rails of it all. I think it'd be interesting to see how we might plan and because I've got the other streams that have got like some of the UI design stuff. Like in reality, a product getting shipped out the door isn't always just one engineer just bashing at code. There's design, but then also you need that kind of, okay, what's the specification, what's in and what's out of what we're going to build, and how we're going to convey that to ourselves in advance. Like I could anyone who's watched this stream before knows that we just do most stuff on the fly because we're like, screw it, doesn't matter. But if we're going to try and ship something, we probably want to make some of those decisions. This is not an example of a spec. This is just some questions I wrote on the stream last week. But I think it would be cool to do some of that more like process, product management-y, documentation-y stuff on the stream, just so that people could pitch in if they see they have ways that they love doing it in their app or their job or whatever. Like, I'm super interested in how other people work, and even I'm lucky enough to get to see other the way that other people spec work, and it's interesting. Like, sometimes it's really similar. You might be at an organization and there is a consistent template, and even within that there are differences. The way different teams want different levels of detail, different engineers want different levels of things that are around the technical specifications. They might want more context or more information about who to contact, just other stuff. I find all that stuff useful, so maybe other people will as well. And we'll do all that stuff. So this is not a spec, this is just a list of questions, but let's go and answer them, and we'll come back to writing spec stuff at some point in the future. And we'll this is public, so people can go take a look at it. I think I put the link in the YouTube thing. The Twitch thing gets generated automatically. I actually don't know how to... do I have to just go to Twitch and post it in the chat? Does the Twitch chat stay with the video? We're a year into doing this, and I still don't really understand. I was watching someone live stream some Rails on Twitch the other day. It was really great, really fun. But finding it was... unless you follow that person, I really struggle to work out what's going on a lot of the time. Okay, so where's the link? I'm going to go find it and then post it in the Twitch chat, which I hope will then stay. There you go. It's in Twitch as well as YouTube. Cool. Let's go build some stuff. So we added... What did we do? We can't have done a lot. We genuinely can't have done, because I was only streaming for like 10 minutes. Add Pundit gem, add Pundit to application controller. And also we're still on a branch called add divides, which we pretty much definitely don't want to be on. Okay, that's all fine. We can change that. And then we have got a half written before action. Right, we really got nowhere. Okay. So let's fix our, what are these changes? So we've got a half written before action. Let's discard that because I'm not really sure what's going on there. And what's in the events controller? Oh, so this is the start of writing our first admin controller. This idea of we want to build an admin area. We're going to start there. And that's why these questions we want to answer are all around, like, how do we know who an admin area is? Yeah, and we spoke around this idea of not trying to be too complex. Well, let's keep this for a second. We can just stash this, I guess. Make this a bit bigger. Let's stash that. And then we can be on add Pundit, I think is what we want to do. Cool. And does that have... So I think all of that got merged into master, didn't it? So I'm just going back to where it came from. I'm I keep trying to make this font bigger, so I'm hoping it says legible. People. Yeah, great. Okay, so we only did those two things. Add the Pundit gem. So Pundit, we didn't do anything that we did in the previous streams about going and looking at other authorization gems and things like that. There is a stream if you're interested in going and exploring a bunch of like, I can't even remember what the other ones are called, but there's a whole stream on it if you look in the YouTube channel archive. So then we can have, we added it to the application controller. So I think that generates the add Pundit gem generates this like default policy where every action that you would normally look for is false. And then add Pundit to application controller, I guess, is just an include Pundit. And that, I think, we were following the docs, and I'm pretty sure that just adds in the, I can't remember the name of the method. It's like authorize with a Z, maybe in a bang method. Can't remember. I think it's authorize. Because I can't remember what the difference between can and Pundit is, but I think it adds an authorized method and any other methods. So then we had, okay, so let's then go and get our new controller back. So this is the idea of, again, I can probably bump the font size up a little bit. So we've got this namespaced area here called admin. And again, I don't really like the name admin because you normally end up with several admins, but I also didn't want to spend, that's actually a really good thing, the kind of thing that you could you don't want to be getting to code and deciding this normally. Like you would probably have had a conversation around that, hopefully while you were still doing some planning and being like, oh, actually, is this the admin area? Is it the control panel? Is it the user account thing? User account, I mean, user admin. You got nothing but options. And my call last time was that admin was the lesser of all evils, which I'm probably not sure I agree with, but whatever. So we have a controller. Did we build anything else? Did we build any? Oh, no, because there's nothing else in the Git thing. Okay, we literally got to here. Well, shall we be a bit more diligent then and build out like a page that we can access before actually putting on like the controls around it? Should we do things a bit more like build an index page and have the index page render? Well, we don't have anything. Why did I start with this rather than this is probably why I'm thinking we should do some planning. Like, we've built a controller, we don't have any events to actually render out because we haven't done the work to work out how we're going to model those things. Fine, okay, we're working completely backwards. Let's not worry about that. Remember, I say every week, we are not building this properly. Like, if you were working in a team, you would not do it this way around. But let's not worry about that. Let's do things the wrong way around and lean into it. Right, we have a bunch of test stuff, right? That's all mini test from generators, I think. Yeah, these are all empty. Okay, oh crap, so we don't even have our spec yet or anything. Okay, well I'm jumping too far ahead, so we've got to do some more basics to start with. So that's Pundit installed. We can, okay, let's stash this again. Okay, we're going back a step. That's not worry, we've got to do our basics. We decided not to buy, or I decided not to buy Bullet Train or Jumpstart Rails or any of those fun things. So we got to go and do some more basic stuff to start with. Right, so we want. I think I always end up with like. Is it like dash RSpec Rails is the gem rather than just RSpec that you tend to end up with? And I know that I have done this recently in the channel. Like, genuinely, we did this for the original Sunday Club app. Let's just assume it's this one. And we... Current development build. So what's the actual... where's releases? 4.02. Oh, but we are on Rails. Rails from 5 or 6. This is actually probably the worst place to go because we could just go to the proper docs. Nope. What am I thinking of? I want version 5.02. Okay, let's just install it and it'll do the latest one. Let's not worry about that. But we want it in development and test. Okay. Is there anything else that we need with it? No? These, okay. So, bundle install. And stuff like that. And then we'll do all of this in one commit, I think. Generate some cool stuff. I think I am going to do a project one time in my life where I just really lean into mini test. I think that is a goal that I have in my life. Because I always look at it and think how concise it is in comparison. Can we just commit all of those defaults, I guess, so. Just going to chuck them all in. I can't remember the capitalization. It's S as well. So add rspec and the default. Files. I'm putting plurals for we recently in these commits. I don't know why. Oh, hello, hello, Jacob. Hello, welcome. We have. I think maybe we works for this repo because although we're not pairing, we are pairing because people come and watch these videos and then they're like, "Hey, you've made huge mistakes." Please mention them in the commit messages. We generated the config files with whatever we ran. Cool. Cool. So we have rspec in there, and we actually we can remove the test stuff as well. And we can. Is there anything in there we actually need? We'll need to put in if we want those system tests. Oh yeah, that's all now built in, isn't it? I've always done that with I'm gonna remove it for now just because I'm not there yet. But I know that there was a bunch of changes, I think in 5 that was all around like system tests and parallelization. Jacob, I didn't know you could do markdown in a commit. It won't render as it won't render as markdown. Yeah, sorry, that's just a habit actually. It won't render even on GitHub. It won't render as markdown. It will render as plain text. But I don't. My brain is like, oh, that's okay. Like you get the output. So if I see someone else writing markdown in commit message. I actually see the link syntax a lot. So what I see a lot in commit messages is like blah 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 stuff, and then they'll put a link like that, and then you can put one, and then you can put in like the link, and it doesn't help. Like it doesn't render in GitHub. That like it all still renders as plain text, but it means that you don't have to put the really long links in the commit message. So you can just put them as like this kind of footnote reference in commit messages. So I see that one a lot, but no, sorry, Jacob, I didn't mean to mislead you and think that it was a handy thing that would look good in GitHub or anything like that. It as far as I'm aware, it's just plain text still. So we're going to remove as files. These have what these were. Oh shit! These were generated automatically. I'm just gonna, I don't need to put any more context in. I think we might want the system test ones back, but I don't know anything about that right now, so I'm just going to remove it to remove myself the ambiguity. Cool. Okay, so does this work out the box then? Do you get stuff? Do you get an output from that? You do. You get a thing. Cool. Okay. I haven't looked at anything that we actually committed in terms of the helper. So again, it's got fixtures in that. Again, that's kind of like I said. Like I don't know why I've always associated fixtures and mini tests and then factories with RSpec. I think it's just the apps I've worked on that give me that association. But I do see people talking about the speed of their mini test and fixture based code bases and think, oh yeah, I'm aware that there are probably trade-offs there, but they're potentially really good depending on the context of your app. So can we then do you just, is it controllers? I wanted that to be a folder. So I'm just gonna see if we can get a controller test running, because I can't remember. So controller tests are deprecated in favor of request specs. Is that an RSpec thing now? Because I remember this coming up last time I did controller spec, RSpec request specs, and they're not a million mild different. And I think the controller stuff was just being pulled out into another gem rather than deleted altogether. I also couldn't remember the difference. I remember reading about it and thinking, okay, like it's not a million. That's different. Request specs will provide a thin wrapper around Rails integration tests and design. Type requests specify single request, but multiple controllers. And so if I go to RSpec controller tests, are they indicated that they are deprecated in the docs? We encourage you to use request specs if you want to set headers in your call. If you still want to use controller specs with customers, you can use request headers. Okay, maybe they're not deprecated. It's a versioning thing. No, that's the latest version. Or was that in terms of, was that a mini test thing? I can't remember. I'm just going to write the controller test because I can't see anything immediately there telling me not to. RSpec controller test deprecate. Our controller spec, here we go. Oh, this is from 2017. Okay. Are controller specs discouraged in favor of request specs? Blah, 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 blah. That's the question. Yes. Okay. The best advice we can give people working in Rails is to write request specs. Consider writing a new controller spec into it to be a smart. Oh, okay. Even though keeping controller specs around for later is absolutely fine. If you like to. So that is in the README. Okay. Oh, and then people are still talking about it years later. Request is only marginally slow. Okay, so there's a performance trade-off. We're just reading all of this. It's like a 3-year conversation. You are testing a large part of the middleware stack in the controller specs too. They have never been unit tests. Request specs are not end-to-end. These are facilitated by system tests. Right, so that's the system test stuff that I want to read. That's something else that I want to look into as well. So I think system test is now the new feature test. I'm not quite sure where the terminology switches between the testing libraries. So regardless, Aspect Rails is a thin wrapper around Rails test helpers, bringing their pattern into Aspect for use. So it's up to them to recommend what they want. I don't see that very often. This comment is marked as off topic. I like that. Okay, so that then got drifted off. Okay, so is request specs are the way to go in this gem. Okay, so that's helpful. Although it would be helpful. So he's added it to the README, but it would kind of be helpful if it was on here. But then I suppose this is just the documentation if you know what you're doing. Like if you, I don't know, it would be handy up top to be like, you might not want to do this. Controller spec is an aspect wrapper. Does it mention request specs in here? No. No, okay. So what's the syntax for this? We're going to have to learn a new thing. So spec requests, so that's going to change. We can rename this. Requests. So are they, do we name them the same as widget management? Okay, that's not overly helpful. These are all for widget management. Okay, so requests, admin. Can I still do something like, I've already forgotten what the controller we called it was like. Because I know it's now a request spec rather than a controller spec, but that remains the thing I'm testing. I need to go and find some up-to-date references for doing that. Okay, so I just want to, I just want a basic test. And I want to test. Maybe I'm totally not doing this. Oh, where's my controller gone? Maybe I'm doing this completely the wrong way. So if anyone has any guidance on this, it would be appreciated. So describe admin controller. I just don't enjoy the rocket or whatever. I don't like that little symbol. Totally an aesthetic choice, but I'm 90% sure that you can now do this in Ruby and it's the same thing. I think you can also do it on string ones now. At one point you had to use the little rocket for string based ones, but I think you can do string ones as well with this. So it creates a widget. So we can do the index. Oh, those are double quotes. Oh man. I don't know if we're in single quote land or double quote land. I think because it ends in RB, I would be in single quote land. What pointless things we all spend our time thinking about. How many quotes, single and double quotes. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to end up doing those as doubles if they're in the docs. So we don't need that, and we can just do. So I'm assuming we then get. Oh, okay. So actually testing the path here and not. So do I not get in controller tests? I would get index would be my. I don't need any params, but I would get a response, and it would have HTTP status. So that I would get like. I think OK is the default one. Do I get this in a request spec? Can I find that out really quickly? Or do I always need the path? This feels like something that I'm going to Google and hopefully get an answer pretty quickly. Request spec controller action. I'm hoping this person on Medium has put in a code sample. I'm not going to read their valuable content, although I really appreciate them writing it. Please tell me there are some codes. What are all these big white areas? What's happening? Request specs should be used. Okay, I want to use request specs. Tell me whether I get my helpers or not. Big blank areas of that post. I don't know why. Okay, let's go. Just, oh, whoa, that's very, very tiny font. Okay. Oh, yeah, my search is obviously wrong. I'm not getting the results I'm looking for. Okay, so this person is using the path every time. So do we have to then use path helpers? We can include roots helper that we can use root URL to. So it looks like this person has put in the helpers. They've put it in their RSpec config to be able to use their. It was more helpful to not have to bother doing that in a controller test. Like, I'm assuming we could write that ourselves. Like, we could go and look at the name of the test. This feels like something I can Google later. Like, presumably the point is that it was looking at the name of the file or the test or something, getting the relevant controller, and then it was like, oh, well, here do we have an equivalent controller in the actual controller directory? Yes, great. In that case, I know that I just need, when there is a get post or whatever, the action after it is potentially an action on that thing, and then I can run it. Okay, let's just put get. And these are all from the root, I would assume. So let's say it's get admin / events. So we now want to have a page. So does this do a thing? It's pretty exciting, actually. We haven't done anything new on this stream for a little while. Okay, so have we got a real thing? Yes, a real failure. So no root matches get admin events. Cool, that's exactly what the failure we wanted. What's in our changes so far? Okay, so test controller. We just want to undo. That's only got 2 files. Great. Okay, so we don't have that root. Okay, let's go and add the root. Remember, we haven't got any models at this point, so this is all totally for nothing. We have nothing that we can actually show, but that's okay. We are okay with it. We are gonna say we've done this before with the namespace thing, haven't we? We did this last time. And there was pros and cons. There's like 2 or 3 syntaxes for this, and they impacted on one before. So it'd be like Rails routing namespace space scopes versus namespace. That was it. I think that was it. You end up with 2 different. Yeah, with the following code, you will end up with the following route. So we can namespace it with a symbol, but you can also put in scope. And you get different outputs. So what's the difference between the output? You will end up with the following routes. Blah, blah, blah. Right, so namespace puts the controller prefix on, puts the prefix of the namespace. Let me zoom this in more. So you can see here that because we've done namespace, you get /admin in front of all the controller names. Whereas when we use scope, it only changes the admin here, but the controller isn't changed. But we are namespacing our controllers so far, so we want namespace. And there was a couple of other fun things that you can add into namespace. So it accepts a bunch of arguments where you can customize things, and I think because we could keep the, like I mentioned last time, again, it was on the streams that I pulled down because we didn't have a good connection. The name of the namespace doesn't need to be the name of the path. So we could namespace everything as admin and then have the path as control panel or something like that. Like they don't have to match. And you do that in this this call here. So let's add our roots. And in here, we're going to have we're going to have index. And so do we then end up with a lovely fun Rails roots? No, it's Rails info roots. Loads of devise stuff. Loads of active storage stuff. Okay, fine. Do we have our events here? So again, a bump font says up in there. So admin events path. The path is /admin/events. That's the one we're calling in our test. And it's going to index. So that's all good. So now we should get a different failure from our test. Oh, yeah, amazing. So again, I was jumping the gun because we didn't have any tests. Event. Oh, no, I think I did do it. I just deleted it earlier. So we actually, because we were installing Pundit, we have this idea of introducing an admin-based controller because that can handle the kind of basics of access control and things like that. So the order of things, this just doesn't make any sense, but let's just keep going. Yeah, there's just no reason that you would do things in this order. It doesn't make any sense. So you would have done some planning, you would have done built models and stuff, but that's all good. I say you would have, like, do what you want. I'll tell you what to do. Do it the way you want to. I don't want to do any planning and stuff for the live streams. Don't have to. Can't make me. If you're working with a team or like trying to do things responsibly, I would recommend not just doing everything on the fly. But you know, you would normally want other people reading your code to understand the order in which you have done things. Right. So we now have a awesome failure, which is like, hey, yep, now I can find the route you're trying to get to. I can find the controller. You just don't have an actual thing for me to get there. And we can do, you don't have to add an empty method here, but it is sometimes helpful to let people know that there is something happening. So I do see this, like we're going to add stuff there, but you could just put a view at index and Rails will figure it out. But looking at the controller, it doesn't tell you that there is stuff happening through that action. So you can add a blank one in if you want to just make that really explicit to people. Whereas what we can do here is go and add a view, and this would, as long as it was named correctly, allow Rails to respond to that. Admin events. We can just put events in there. So it doesn't matter what the content is. So between those two things, so if we didn't have this file, we would get an error on our test that was couldn't find the template, and now we should get, well, hopefully it should pass, actually. We should get a passing test. I think. Great. Okay, so yeah, we've got a page that responds, and also it should work if have we got a server running? Yeah, okay. So we should be able to go to localhost 2000 should say, yeah, you're on Rails. And now we should have /admin/events. We should say the word events, which it does underneath this thing, I think. Yeah, the word events is under there. You just can't see it because the mini test stuff is, or whatever that's called. Not mini test, rack profiler or whatever it is. Helpful thing is hiding it, but it works. It's great. It's lovely. It's shiny. We have some code. We've done everything in the wrong order, but let's not worry about that whatsoever. Let's go do some committing of our code. I think we can keep everything in here, right? Maybe we should do it in the wrong order and then rebase it all later. Maybe we can get away with it. I feel like this is all just going to go in. So take a look. So we've got base controller. So yeah, so now we have to explain in our commit message why we're adding stuff in that we're not actually using. So like that's what I mean about doing things in the wrong order. We're just adding code that's like speculative. Like I know we're going to use it because it's us live doing this on the live stream. We're just, it's there's no impact to any of this stuff. In general, if you're working with other teams or other developers, you probably don't want your speculative code in there. You're like, oh, hey, well, I was going to come and add that thing and we were going to use it to do X, Y, and Z. You might get pulled away from that work at short notice, or something else might happen that means you don't go down that direction, or another engineer might take a different implementation or something. So in general, you probably don't want your stuff to go into production or master or wherever you're merging it to until you're pretty sure that it's like happening or is like in use. Or a good pattern for this is introduce the speculative code in maybe in a pull request, but by the end of the pull request, like the next commit, you're using it. So you're like, oh, well, here in this commit, it's potentially going to be used. We're going to use it in the next commit. Next commit, great, it's here. So when that actually goes to production, there's no point at which any other engineer could have started to misconstrue what you were trying to implement or anything like that. So generally, I think that's probably a good thought process to go through. So we just added in this base controller, but it doesn't have anything in it. So we're just inheriting from it but it doesn't do anything. So why are we doing that? Whatever. Let's not do this here because that sucks. Let's do it in a proper commit message. Yes. Oh, morning Pedro. So I'd probably get to green and commit inheriting from app controller, then change on a later commit as refactoring step as and when. Yeah. So I think if you're used to this, I'm not going to be that diligent. Just this is going up. Good morning. So yeah. So you what Pedro's saying there, getting to green. Is basically having your test pass. So again, you do you kind of thing. I think if you're not I think it must be hard if you're not familiar. I'm kind of saying stuff like that as if it's and then you just do this and then do that and blah blah blah. When you get more experienced and you get to the end of your pull request, there's a level of comfort where it's I can take this back apart and I can both refactor and rebase it comfortably. That doesn't intimidate me as a part of the process. I'm not going to do that here because we're not doing our correct level of diligence. But I think it must be a bit intimidating on the learner level where you're well, I don't really rebasing is the thing that I'm still learning, refactoring, all of those phrases. So I do get why that kind of thing is scarier. And hearing someone who's maybe a little bit more experienced say oh, don't do things in the wrong order or something yeah, you will get used to those things as you do them more, but don't be scared of anything and certainly if you're not feeling overly comfortable, I think when we work with any kind of newer engineer, if you're really just backtracking, but if if you get it, if you manage to get any code written, you're already winning. So like, but we are, which we could, yeah. So Pedro from the chat, when pairing with more junior devs, I found that dedicated base controller extraction can be really jarring. So like one of the things that is sometimes, like when pairing either with a junior developer or someone new to a code base particularly, is one of the things that's been really helpful. We've been doing this bit of this recently, is like finding things that you're doing in your work that already happen in the code base. So it's like that, again, if people watching around the world, they might not know this, but there's a show in the UK called Blue Peter for kids. And the famous catchphrase is like, oh, here's one I made earlier. So they would basically be putting together something for kids and it would look like a piece of crap because they're like, you've got glue and sellotape all over it. And then they would put it to the side and they'd be like, ta-da, here's a and it would look like this professionally made thing. And it's so helpful whenever you have anything that's jarring or you're having to basically explain an entire concept, but you've only written 10% of it, or you're like putting together the building blocks of it. You're having to bring that person who's either perhaps has less experience or is perhaps newer to that specific code base. They're having to like cast ahead. And sometimes, I don't know if it's helpful, but I find it helpful. I'm like, oh, we can actually go and look at how this is done end to end in this code base and take a look at it and then come back. We don't have anything like that here. So when we have like here we have a base controller and we're basically having behaviors in a base controller that we then inherit, and I'm just assuming that I'm going to do that, but we haven't defined any here, and I'm potentially about to write in them in the commit message. But like, how is the other developer supposed to know that that's what the intention is? And do I expect them to go hunting around? Like, no, I shouldn't have done that. Like, in one commit. But anyway, right, let's keep going. We're all in agreement that this is not the way to do things. So that's the main thing we've got to, is don't do it this way. But we're gonna do it because we are on a live stream and we're gonna write some more code. Okay, so add so let's put add admin name space and initial events controller. That's not great. I don't know why that goes red. It's not a length issue because I think there's like, is there a line in there somewhere? Yeah, we've got enough characters, but something makes it go red. I'm gonna write some of that up so we aren't quite doing things in order, as we don't actually have the concept of events really much of anything in the app. Sometimes you can just be brutally honest and like a real person in a commit message. As we began the app with an admin UI design, this feels like as good a place as any to jump in while building on the live stream. We are including the and what's the base controller called? So we are including the admin base controller on the assumption that this will be where we can authorization code around checking a user is A, then and B admin. Which is, I actually don't know if that would be in the base control because I'm just going to put it in. Right, I'm not going to dwell too much around that. because that'd probably be an actual individual controller, but let's come back to that as well. Right, so we now have a place that has the word events on it, and we can go back to putting Pundit in, because that was what we were talking about. We were answering the questions in our Notion doc, like, how do we know a user is an admin? And then we can start to look at these questions and actually have real code that starts to answer these, again, without bothering to have an event model or anything in an event registration application that has anything to do with events. All application development would be way easier if you didn't have to bother with developing the thing and just did all of the cool Rails stuff around the thing. That's way easier. Right, okay, so let's carry on with Pundit. We got to adding the helpers into application controller, and we wanted to do, we basically want it to fail unless we don't want to be able to access that path unless a person is an admin, and we have to answer those questions. So maybe we can do that in code. Maybe we can skip all of our upfront planning and diligence and try and answer some stuff on the stream. So let's go and say that we'll write it out for longhand for now. So when I've done these in the past, we've ended up with basically like a shared example, which I think is the aspect terminology, where you basically give. I think they were controller tests rather than request text, but tests. Oh, that's a mouth, a tongue twister. So you would have a shared example, and you would basically say you'd be in the controller spec, and you would say the name of the action, and you would give the shared example the name of the action, and done this in a couple of different ways, I think, but you would then give it something that represented who can or couldn't do the action generally. And so what do I mean by that? You might have roles. So you might have an array which just contains like admin, blah, blah, blah. Or you might have like, they need to belong to this organization or something like that. But the idea is that you have the shared example, and then you can just pass everything you need to it. And that means that you don't, in every single controller thing, have to write, if they're an admin, do this. If they're not an admin, do this other thing. If they're, you can basically create this kind of matrix of, okay, well, here are all of the roles, and here is all of the things that we kind of care about, and then we're going to hit them, and this test is going to hit this controller with all of them, and they should all fail apart from the ones that the array that you're passing in should allow. I'm not describing that very well, but we're going to do a longhand for now, on the assumption that that's not somewhere you probably want to end up. I would assume that you would want to, because you're testing it all the time. You're always like, don't let people get here, basically, and you don't need to rewrite that a million times. That's a long way of saying you don't need to write it a million ways. So, as an admin, I guess I don't really know what that means yet. And then what are you if you're not an admin? As a not admin? Like, we don't have any terminology. One of the good things about Codebase is that, like, when you join something else, all of this is done for you. Like, everyone's decided on it, and even if it's not good or right, like, it's done. So you're like, as a member, admin, all of that fun stuff. When I have this flag, blah blah blah. Whereas we're coming up with this. So as an admin, and then we would need to do something. So when I say we're going to figure this out in code, we're just going to literally write gibberish. So we're going to do somehow make a user an admin somehow. So like I said, it could be a flag, it could be whatever. And then we're going to have the same test. Oh, this shouldn't be create a widget. This should be, oh crap, I've got to rebase that now. Receives. successful response. Let me just commit that because that one needs fixing because that's a typo in the previous one. Even though I said we weren't going to rebase the fact that it had like a base controller in it, there's no point in having one with the an incorrect wording in it if we're just going to change that. Oh, can you commit just a line here? Sorry, stage just that line? Or have I changed too much of it? I only really want that line, so if I just do... Bear with me just a second, I'm just going to go back to whatever got committed before. Oops. God damn it. So it should be... that? Yeah. Sorry, just so that we know to go back and fix that later. Can I just go all the way forward? No, I've broken that. Now I can do that. Cool. Get rid of this one. Sorry, I wasn't annotating any of that. Didn't really care about any of that stuff. I was basically just updating that line so that I could fix it in the previous commit. So this one should work. And this has the context of as a... Yeah, so when I said there was like this matrix of things, because it's not just that you're an admin or not an admin. You're an admin or not an admin. You're logged in or you're not logged in. You've got certain permissions but not other ones. Like that's the matrix you end up creating. It's not that... it's very few apps I've ever done where it's like one or the other. There's usually like, okay, well, you can get to some areas. You've got roles. You've got roles that can be overridden with individual permissions. You are on a team. You've got an organized blah, blah, blah. And it's always vital that all of those are exercised. Like it's always complicated and it's always incredibly important. I know I actually did want to do that. And it's like you can also test it at multiple levels. So you might have like we've got a request spec here, but you might then still have like a set of smoke tests because it's so important to every application that people can't access data that they shouldn't be able to. It's like you don't ever half-ass those tests or leave a gap where you're like, oh, actually, well, we're pretty confident that gets covered. Like you always not over test it, but like, yeah, exercise it everywhere. And just have every safeguard that you can around like, you know, no one should be able to get, and in reality, they're all exercising the same, probably like mechanism. They're all exercising like, it's usually a single point. It was like, can user access this? No. Okay, well, fine. You're going to go down a different code path. But yeah, still test the crap out of it. So as an admin, which we don't know what that means, you should now, so this should now not receive a successful. So, so it should, oh no, so it receives a unauthorized. And all like, why are we starting with this? Well, basically to try and catalyze, is that a word? This conversation around like how we're going to answer these questions. That's mainly what we're doing here. So maybe we could just, I know we didn't get the, maybe we didn't get that. just so I don't, in case we change the path or something later. And then this one should be, I think it's unauthorized. I'm making that up. Well, that'll fail anyway. As an unknown user, it receives an unauthorized response. Receives a successful response. Okay, so this should now fail. Okay. Yep, so they both get 200s, which they should not get. So maybe this catalyzes a conversation, and then we actually make another branch where we do introduce our mechanism for admins and then come back to this, rebase this on top. So we use this as a catalyst, but actually don't have to worry about solving it in this branch. But it depends on the solution. So bump the font size up. How do we know a user is an admin? Last stream we introduced, not last stream, but like in the previous application we built, we introduced loads of fake complexity because we never were looking to kind of ship the app on any kind of level. So we had this idea of a site had multiple organizations, which had, an organization had multiple sites. Did we do teams or something like that? I can't remember. Whereas now I think we probably do want to introduce the concept of an organization. I've written here. I think we do need to, we're going to need organization because I don't think that having a flag, I think it would work. It would get us something shippable, but I think it immediately falls down in any practical sense. Like it is simple and shippable, but it's so basic. You end up having to, because you're still going to want to group people by organization anyway, so that you know which events they can admin, because presumably an organization owns a series of events rather than any individual organizing them. Although again, in terms of like really not jumping ahead, you could say, well, each person owns the events they create, and then we go down the road and introduce the idea of organizations later. But that's probably, yeah, because maybe we never even get to that level of complexity. Maybe we just keep it as like a user account, which is, you know, a person sort of creates the event. They create a list of events. Only that account can access them, and all we do to check. Maybe the most basic version to ship is that there is no concept of admin. It is literally that the only person who could access it, so the access control in here, or in what would actually be in the pundit authorization, would be like event, again, which we don't have, dot user or something, equals current user. That's kind of the most basic version I can think of, where it's like, you made it, you own it. That falls apart really quickly in terms of the real world, because you probably don't want only one person to have admin things when you're doing event organization. So although we are trying to get the simplest shippable thing out the door, we actually aren't trying to get the simplest shippable thing out the door, because it would be nice if this was actually useful. So the simplest and the minimally viably useful are not the same thing. So if we say, this is, actually, let me just expand on this. So we could add a flag that is admin, or only allow the creator of the event to administrate it. This is fine, but doesn't really meet the needs of a real world app. And I don't think the complexity that you get is too crazy. So when we looked at Jumpstart Rails and Bullet Train, for example, like one of the first things they mentioned as a foundation is this concept of organizations, teams, blah, blah, blah. And it's really rare that you can get that out of the box because you always need like some customization because apps are weird. But I think that's probably too simple. So if we had this concept of organization and an organization that has many users, like, does it have teams? So what do I mean by that? You could have an organization that had 300 employees, and maybe everyone in the sales department is allowed to access sales events, but the tech department isn't. Oh my god, the local dogs around here. Can you hear that? I think something is happening outside. I think the local dogs are trying to murder each other in the garden. I don't think they're in the same garden. I think they're just barking at each other over fences. This is how high the drama gets around my my area. Dogs barking on a Sunday morning is pretty crazy around here. Does it have teams? That's probably that's probably an example of going too far, I think. So that is probably looking to see if I can see any of these dogs. I can't see any of them. Oh, nothing. Okay. That's probably going too far. So that is actually probably really useful in a lot of applications. Definitely for billing, stuff like that. All of those fun things. But I think we're probably too far. So we could have an organization. So we could say this is probably too complex for our initial needs, and like, you know, how many needs, because we're making this up, but whatever. If we have an organization, that can, just moving these around actually. Again, another bonus of Notion is how handy this kind of stuff is. Like drag and drop bullet list is super helpful. Does it have teams? So we could say an organization has many users. We could say any user from an organization can admin any event from the same organization. And maybe that gives us enough complexity, but enough power. So then you can just add people to, so the organization could be Sunday Club. You add people to the organization. And then instead of checking anything else here, you would say event.organization equals current user dot. Well, then you could do like this, which assumes that the user only is a member of one organization, and what you could probably be better off assuming is never that there's one. So you'd be more likely, again, to be something like this. I can never remember if it's include or includes, but I think it's include. So current user organizations include event organization. So then a user can belong to multiple organizations, and then you could check it that way. So we fit that entire line. Because the moment that you assume a user can only have one of anything, you are going to get screwed over later, generally. Like, it's just a general rule of thumb. As soon as you put has one, actually, no, has one is not too bad because that just puts a limit. As soon as you actually code it as if there can only be one, you are likely to get stung. But then you're going to have to redo anything, like if you introduce teams or anything like that. Or you were introduce roles would be another one. So it would be current. So it would be the current user exists in that organization, and within that organization dot like you'd have something like, again, you wouldn't be doing this in the controller. I'm just using this as an example. These are how far we want to push this, but you would have something like an event admin check. I don't know what it would be called, something like that. And you would pass in the user, and you would pass in the organization, and you would pass in something, and it would actually check both that the user was a member of the organization, but also that they had some set of permissions or something like that. There's about a million different ways to build it. They're all generally the same, producing the same output. Because the only thing you care about at the end is the yes or no. So I think we can not worry about the roles for now, and we can not worry about the specifics. I think we could just go with organization, and if a user is a member of an organization, they can admin stuff. That's probably enough for now, and we can back out easily enough of that later. So what does being an admin mean? You can access the admin area for your organization. You can create and edit events for that organization. Yeah, okay. And I think a user can be a member of multiple organizations. When we were looking at like Jumpstart Rails, they had a version of theirs that was open source. It was like a simple version. Oh, I think it's that one. I think it's the second result. Does this have like a gem for this stuff? They use gems for loads of stuff, like they Notifier or whatever that, like we used the gem on the previous stream around like in-app notifications and things like that, or email notifications, and that was pretty cool. I'm just wondering if there's like something that they do that's, they have organizations in here? No, they just start with the user. What's service? Oh, that's like an OAuth thing. Okay, fine. Okay, so you don't get anything like that. So why am I looking at this all of a sudden? It's that idea of like minimum viable complexity. Looking for teams. Oh, maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe they don't have that by default. Maybe it was the other one. What's the other one? Bullet train. But this one isn't minimum viable. I think the idea of bullet train is it's way more expensive, but it seemed to get you further faster. But it really seemed to assume, yeah, so SaaS in a box, like it was like opinionated teams. Okay, teams. Providing an overview of organizational teams of bullet train. This article doesn't just explain how team, membership, invitation, and role relate. So this is all the stuff we've just been talking about. Let me bump this font size up. But it also explains how to properly think about resource ownership even in complex scenarios. Furthermore, it touches on ways in which bullet train's organizational structure has been successfully extended. Right, so you're kind of building on top of their way of doing. Oh, okay, it's a blog post, right? Okay, cool. So I'm just skimming. I'm not going to read this whole thing. The resources in your domain model will typically end up belonging to one of three things: the entire system, a joint organization, or an individual user. A Yelp-esque business listing belongs to a photographer. A bride/groom can submit an inquiry to a photographer. A business listing. When an inquiry is submitted, we save the wedding date provided on the groom grad account so we can pre-populate. However, when it comes to domain modeling, the language used to describe things matters a lot. When it comes time to implement, there is a big difference between the statements I made above and what those statements actually should have been. The Yelp-esque business listing belongs to a photography company. A photography company can have many photographers. And all. This is what we've just got, like, this is hard. Like, it's always hard. And other employees working in support roles such as marketing and accounting, all of whom may have a vested interest in the business listing. Couples can submit. So this is why I was saying I think it'd be interesting to do some of the planning stuff in Notion, like writing up the specs for some of this work. Because like, look at how that you could write this in like 10 different ways for 10 different people, but they all have to say the same thing, and the technical implementation has to produce the correct result. And the like, whether you're a product manager writing these up for a team to implement, or like an engineer working on your own stuff, like, it's so interesting to see other people write these things up. Even in software that isn't primarily collaborative, there are so many examples where I talk to developers and they describe their domain model in terms of resources belonging to users when they really should belong to some sort of joint team, so that the initial user at least has the option of inviting other people to help them maintain whatever resources are in the system without having to pass credentials around. If all else fails, ask yourself this. If you're still wondering whether whether that resource you're going to add to your domain model should belong to a team or an individual user, which is kind of the overall question we're looking at, just ask yourself, what if a user wants their assistant to help them with this? Yeah, I mean, in that scenario, you basically never have anything belong to a user, which is probably the right shout. Although I noticed the Jumpstart Rails did have stuff like allowing the support team to masquerade as user impersonation. Yeah, so like I've certainly worked in applications where things belong to the user to the point where it's actually hard for the support team to issue support because we can't actually see what the user can see, because it's so locked down to that user that we have to basically like try and recreate it on a staging template or something. That's just not helpful. But then there are some places like where data protection stuff makes that requirement. Anyway, okay, that's all good. I think we are happy with saying this at the moment, and we're just going to say that the resources, the event belongs to the organization. The organization has many organizations. Presumably there is some sort of membership to that organization that needs to be modeled, and we do it that way. Does that mean this can all go? This was just illustrative code. So does that mean we want to pause this branch and go and build out our modeling for that stuff? We're in our early stages, so that feels good / fine to me. Yeah, okay, so let's just do a whip commit here. So whip is work in progress. You're basically like, hey, I'm not done here. Looking at introducing admins and access control to events. Okay, cool. So this is one of the fun things when you're kind of starting out. We can just put stuff on pause. We can jump back to master, and we can make a new branch, and we can do add organizations, and we might actually back our way into making events first, and then that would introduce this thing that we could then rebase everything that we were talking about earlier on top of it and do it quote unquote properly. So even if you don't do any planning, maybe you do just back yourself into always having to do things in the right order anyway, but that's fun. That's good. So let's build some models, I guess. Or do we continue to fake that as well? No, we did it for the other app, and I don't remember it being particularly painful. Like, are there gems for this? Like genuinely, like Rails gem organization teams. Username groups instead to add members. Just looking to see if there's anything where we like groupify group member, named group member. So I've used organization, but I mean, you could look at any generic language for groups. It's kind of interesting. So this would be like group class name, like my custom. So this could be organization, and then you'd have organization membership. So this is like a standard in our spec here. We're basically saying a user can be a member of multiple organizations. So having your membership modeled like as a model, so like the presence of a record with a certain value might indicate a membership. And then you might delete that record to revoke the membership, or maybe you have an attribute that changes to revoked or something like that. That's pretty common in my experience. So I don't know how other people do that. So this is a gem that's kind of abstracting that out. And presumably you can then... So this has organization as a subclass of group. So it is adding a layer on top of what we're discussing doing. Oh, and you, okay, so you get users.groups, user named group in named group. So this is exactly what we were just looking at. Bump this font size up again. So here, user in named group admin. And presumably we could then have two groups, one of which was organization and then one which was like organization role or something like that. This looks really cool, but I'm wondering if the abstraction is actually slightly a trade-off, or do you just get helpers? Like, do I have to learn this gems API and the fact that we have organizations and then teams and things like that? Whereas those things are often so fundamental to your app design. You're like, oh no, like that would be users.organizations, I'm assuming, if we name that group organization, and it would like just destroy its membership from one group. But those are just helper methods you only have to build once anyway. Membership types allow a member to belong to a group in a more specific way. For example, you can add a user to a group with a membership of manager. Specify this user has the manager role in that group. This can be used to implement role-based automation. Yes, this is exactly what I was looking for in terms of a gem. I'm just debating about the value of it versus doing it ourselves. It could be used to add users to a resource of the same subgroup or project. And presumably all of these relationships live then in one table. So you then don't end up with organization memberships, team memberships, or as it would be organization team memberships or whatever it would be. Interesting. Yeah, and so this is what we were talking about here. Shares any group. With the post, and in that case that would be an event rather than a post, I'm assuming. Interesting. I actually think that is exactly what we're looking for. And my only hesitance would be is that I would really actually want to build, because I've never used it before, I'd actually want to build a case study with it, like just not a case study, but like a dummy version with it, and see what the pain points were. Like, it hasn't been touched in years, so either it's complete and everyone uses it and it's amazing, or they stopped being used. I mean, how much more do you need to add, I guess, but I would assume there's a bunch of stuff in here for like, yeah, that would be my first concern, is how long it's Ruby. But then what do we use, like Ruby Toolbox Groupify? Let's go and see what this Ruby Toolbox Groupify. Okay, so yeah, they're not, because sometimes this says like hasn't been updated, but is totally solidly used, and just I can't remember what they put, but they're like, yeah, it's good. It's done. You don't need to worry about the fact that it doesn't get updated regularly. Okay, I think that's probably a no, but that's definitely got everything that we want in it. So it does introduce this idea of maybe we like, what tables does this I'm just looking to see what this actually generates. So everything is then either a group or a group membership. And it's an abstraction on top of us having an organizations table, and then a teams table, and then all of those other things, and then a corresponding membership one for each one. Don't know how I haven't bumped into the pain point of having those two tables be two, or like two tables per relationship being a killer, because you're usually adding specific rules anyway. I don't know if that's too bad. Useful to know about though. Okay, let's back our way into create organization. So why use organization? Have used other phrases other than organization, and basically you always end up with other types. So organization, I think, is generic enough that it could be anything. Yeah, group, I think, is another one that's just like so generic. It could be businesses, charities, good causes was something I've worked on before. The model was called, we had a model called charity, I think. And then we immediately wanted, not immediately, but like very quickly wanted to allow organizations that didn't meet that criteria. So we then added an attribute to it. It was like type. And one of the types was basically like not a charity. It was like negate the name of this model to then refactor towards something else. So yeah, organization is generic enough, so we can give it a name. Let's again, we would normally have done some thinking, but we probably want a slug, I would guess. But maybe we can back our way into that as well, because we haven't needed that functionality. So maybe in terms of actually shipping, let's just give it a name. Because what are we actually trying to do? We're trying to say an organization exists and it has many users through an organization membership. I think that's all we're actually trying to do at this time, and then get to the point where we can check that organization membership in the authorization code, and we can just build those relationships in the console for now. Yeah, and I think I'm more convinced every day that if I wasn't doing this on the stream, I really would pay for jumps. If I was building an app not on a live stream, I think Bullet Train or Jumpstart Rails I would really grab, like, just to get all this stuff out of the way. Like, who cares? Like, we care because I'm interested in like just building this stuff on the stream, but most of the time you just want this problem you want to get to the value as quickly as possible. So name, yeah, I'll do. Don't care about anything else other than its name. So let's go take a look at it. I've got its name and some timestamps. Oh, morning in the chat. It is 12. Okay, we've been going. Oh wow, we've been going a little while. Okay. So let's see how far we can get, because I've got to go and got a very exciting day. I've got to go and pick up a new, well, actually a secondhand coffee table. So got to battle in a little while. Let's see if we can get to checking the auth for this stuff. So But I'm kind of excited that we're building it slightly more properly this time. Like actually trying to get something to ship. I feel a bit more like I think it'd be really cool to have an actual domain where people can click buttons and sign it and stuff. Like we haven't actually got to that on the stream before. What are we doing? Right, committing this. This is and organizations. I'm not even in the model. And organization. We're going to be using station as access control in the admin area. So introducing I'll do. But now we can go back and look at all this stuff later. Okay, great. So we now have a record. Let's create a model, I guess. Yeah, let's create a model. And we could have scaffolded that actually, to be honest, because it's basic. It is not a typo, by the way. For organization, I think it has a Z in American English and an S in UK, in the UK. And luckily with my poor typing, it actually usually has none of the correct letters. Application. And we can... Oh, actually, should we have validated name at the... Should we put null false on the migration, actually? I think we might want to say that it never doesn't not have a name. Never, wait, what? I've built a ticket. I'm super excited to see how someone else approach it. Oh my god, amazing in the chat. So you might become the source of expertise on there. So hopefully you can stick around in future streams. We haven't got to the ticketing part of this yet. We've some previous streams we asked crap load of questions around how to do it. But I've built one and it had some good points and some very large failings. I mean, it worked, but we couldn't meet easily the requests from event organizers. So because of the way we've modeled it, so I'm super excited to see what we get wrong. So I'm actually just gonna quickly change the previous commit. I think we should actually, although we are doing things pretty quickly because we're live streaming it, I think we should probably put in a bunch of safety mechanisms for ourselves because we're going to screw it up. So I think we should not allow organizations without a name in like a DB level, because we can always remove the restriction. No, not schema. We can always remove the these later, but we don't need to give it a default value, but we can just say that we have to have one. Then we can rerun that migration. And then we can just recommit those. Oops. And then we can put the validation on the model as well. Oops, so we can do fix up. Let's say Okay, so that's of course, and then we can say here that it validates. Oh, I never remember the syntax for this. Name presence true. Validate or validates? Oh, it's one and not the other, isn't it? Absolutely. Oh, okay. Oh, well, you're volunteering to answer a bunch of questions. I don't think we're going to get there for a few weeks because we've got to do a bunch of Rails basics. Like at the moment, we're just doing like allowing people to log in. Yeah, I think we had possibly a billion questions about about, or maybe a billion options. It is validates with an S. Ah, what a guess. So validates. And we're being more diligent this time. So we're going to go and do our spec at the same time. Just so that we are... my R spec is on the other branch. Yeah, okay. This is why we do things diligently and in the correct order. Okay. Right, let's just commit this. And then we can worry about that later. Yeah, I go back to what I was saying about doing some planning in that Notion doc to make this a bit more effective each week. Because last time I didn't mind kind of peeing away time on just like missing stuff and then having to go back and rebase it and stuff like that, because we were just exploring different gems and things like that. Now that we're actually trying to get something shipped, it just feels like a bit of a waste of time, and that we could skip with just like a bit of planning up front could save us a bunch of time. So add a add organization model. This model will represent organizations that can, quote unquote, own events. The initial plan is that users will belong to one or many organizations, and that we'll use their membership, the organization, as a mechanism for access control. So again, these aren't, I'd probably give these 10 times more thought if we were doing this properly, but like one of the things I'm looking for in an early commit message on a repo is like what were you thinking? Like what was the, you don't, because we spoke earlier about this idea of like you don't want to add code speculatively, but if you're adding code that is about to be used, you might put in the commit message why you think you're adding it in the early days. That's probably less useful as the code base gets more mature, and then you're like, then I think the commit message is, here's what we know now, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and then you just write good luck exclamation mark at the end of each commit message. But in the early days, you're like, here's some assumptions we kind of were making when these existed. Because definitely when you're looking at a repo and you're like, this model is a thing, and you go back to, it's very rarely been touched, but you maybe want to delete it. And you're like, we don't know how much being used. What did they, if they put in one of the early commit messages that you can go looking for, is like, actually, we thought this was going to happen. And then you look at where things are, you're like, actually, here's why that didn't happen. Maybe that's useful as a thing you can add to an early commit message. Maybe it's not, I don't know. I'm also realizing, looking at this, we don't have the Rubocop thing. So I'm normally getting errors saying, put in the little magic comment at the start of classes and stuff like that. We need to do some of that basic stuff. Again, need to do more planning around this, but let's back ourselves into that as well. So we could then, have we got user in this thing? Okay, so we've got user. And so we want to do organization memberships, but I'm tempted to say we probably want to start doing tests around those. How extractable is that from our other branch? That's on master. It was on Ad Pundit, wasn't it? I know that everyone watches this and they must think, why doesn't he have cool aliases for all of those things? And the answer is because I haven't set them up. And then I've moved to different machines and then I never do all the thing all the cool people do where they have these dot files that sync between all their machines and stuff. The actual answer is laziness. We only really need these two. To move over. Are we definitely sure that this one's going to go first? And more importantly, can we remember the cherry pick syntax to lift them over? Because the answer is definitely no on the can we remember the syntax. Atlassian tutorial, okay. Git dash cherry pick. So do I want to be on? I already forgot what the other one's called. Add organizations. Yeah. If I go onto here, can I then do git cherry pick? Do I need the whole chart or can I just use this one? Cool. And can I then do this one? Line. And I could probably just reorder those so I can just pop them straight at the other end. So that, because then they would come first. So this goes back to something I was saying earlier when Pedro was talking about the kind of working with juniors and rebasing stuff. Like, I'm just so aware of the overhead of having to manage all the Git crap alongside like doing your planning, working out how you're trying to accomplish your goal, writing your first pass at the code, knowing that you probably want to refactor it, then thinking, oh crap, I've spread it over 2 branches. I like rebasing is a thing that I have to give a crap about, like, and can really like really throw you. Like, you're trying to like, let's say that you have a work, like you have 4, 5 commits maybe, and you get like a passing version. You're like, yes, this is all right, but I know it's all wrong. You then add 3 more commits with your refactoring in, and you're like, I now want this narrative to change. I don't want my work in progress commits here. I want to rebase the whole thing. Like, that's it's so intimidating to try. You basically have to feel comfortable with all of those things. Like, we're just casually switching to a new branch while we're working, grabbing a couple of commits about our spec over, kind of just hand waving in our heads, like, oh, okay, well, we'll rebase those out on the other branch when we get there. Like, I think that's just so there's so much overhead, and a lot of becoming more experienced is just doing that stuff and then being able to not worry about it. Like, that's so freeing in terms of actually just being able to focus on the thing you're trying to ship. And it's really difficult to articulate to again, I'm not sure about junior versus senior or experience or less experience, but like knowing that that's coming would potentially, I think, put me off as someone less experienced. I'm sure it did in the past. My memory's not great, but like, it's like, oh, I'm just going to commit these in the order that you're in because I got there. Like, I did it. And probably the structure of your kind of trunk or master or whatever probably suffers. Whereas maybe more experienced engineers end up with a kind of more clear narrative in what actually gets shipped to production, and those commits are neater, but maybe the bubble of their branches is just as messy as everything else or whatever. So I am aware of it. I don't know what to do about it. But if you see me just cherry picking stuff, like I'm aware that that's not always as straightforward for people. Hello in the chat. Hello. Welcome to your Sunday. It is now Sunday afternoon. We've made it past Sunday morning. Right. What are we doing? We now should have RSpec, right? Like that those cherry picks should have given us what we needed on this branch. Great, but we don't have the test that we wrote in the other branch. But we can now add in some tests for our organization model, which is what we're adding. I think that's plural and that's singular. I think. And I'm gonna go and look up the syntax for these. I've never put too much thought into it. You could argue that it represents the journey of the dev's mindset. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And when you say that, I'm assuming you mean like the narrative flow of the commits, like I did this, then I did this, then I did this, or more the journey from having to do that initially, and then as you become more experienced, being able to kind of change that narrative. I think. Just go post. So let's just lift this out. We're going to do organization. You could always wait until the very end, reset the Git history to initial commit. So I think, but I think as a learner or like early on, you really do end up with that. You end up with like, you're like, oh crap, I don't know. Maybe my rebasing skills aren't there yet. So, but what I do know how to do is use because the button in GitHub that you now have is like create a merge. You get 3 options, don't you, in a repo? You get create a merge commit, squash to 1 commit, or rebase, which will take the whole lot over. And if you're a learner, you like, again, learner is a loaded phrase, but like, again, if you're not entirely confident in your rebasing skills, but you do want to change that narrative, that squash button is basically that. Like, it is just resetting the Git history to like, here's everything. Like I did 15 commits worth of work, but fuck it, we just squash it all down the way. And it, like, I think the default thing that GitHub does is it treats them all as a squash. So you get your commit message for your squashed commit is just all of them, and you can edit it before it goes in. And you're like, okay, here's 14 paragraphs about this large commit. Yeah, which is like, oh, when you see those and you're actually trying to work on that, and you have you want the answer to one question, which is like, why did you put this one line in? And you're like, oh, good, this commit only touches 47 files in a major way. All right, what I actually want to do is, do you get with RSpec? Do you get those little helpers? Are they extra? Where it's like should validate blah blah? Or is that because they're basically just little double checks, aren't they? That it's still there. So they're like RSpec presence, validate presence of. Yeah, so is that still in this? Like, do you still need this separate library? Because they're just little one-liners, but they are. Yeah, I think I actually have to add those in. So I'm going to say like, so I think this won't work without that library, but I find those one-liners so helpful that library is pretty worth it. And I've always never had any issues with it in terms of like it being a pain to upgrade stuff. So it should validate presence of name. Let's see if that test works. I think we have to install that thing. Should have matches. Yep. Okay. But I'm going to install it because I like those. For no other reason other than the fact that I like them. Like maybe there's, like if I take those out, RSpec check validate presence. Like, is there a built-in way? Oh, this is from 2015. Is there like an up-to-date answer? Yeah, because I could just write that. which is all that library is doing. These are from years ago, but okay, fine. We can just install that gem. Where's the actual where's the name of the gem? Where's the install line? I was on the proper docs a minute ago, wasn't I? Should have matches. Here we go. Just give me the name of the should have dash matches. Gem should have dash matches. Yes, there we go. That's what I'm trying to. Basically, I'm looking to copy and paste something that lazy. And we want those in development and test, I'm guessing. Oh, only test, because we don't need them in development. They can go all the way down to here. So I know that these often... Oh, no, that's development. These often end up in alphabetical and things like that. But I haven't cleaned out all of the comments and stuff, so you can worry about that later. All right, so yeah, I've got to go pick up this coffee table in a bit, so let's see how far we can get. I think everything we've done is super useful. We are smashing through stuff. Let's get these. Nope. No, I don't need any more than that. It does what it does. And so now, hopefully, when we run that test, it should... I don't actually know if I added... Oops. If I added the validation. Did I? Undefined method validate... Oh, do I actually need to install stuff? Yes. I knew it was too good to be true. Config.integrate. Do we already have that? Oh no, that's actually a whole config. We want this in our Rails helper. Just plonk this at the bottom, I think. Actually, at the top, I don't think it matters. Yep, library Rails. Yes, those are our defaults. So now let's see if it works. Where are you from? I am in the UK. I'm in a town called Ipswich in the UK, which is a pretty small town. That passes. Amazing. So let's just run a commit and get that. Let's fix up that commit in the helper. We don't need that thing there. Where are you from? You're from India? Okay, amazing. Are you in India right now, or you're from India but in the UK? I ask because I wonder what time it is over there. So, but then Finian watches this and he's in New Zealand, so can just put this as a fix up. Add us. Oh no, what's it called? Add. Should matches helper thingy. So that's like another thing that we were talking when we were talking about, like the ability to not have to worry about your Git stuff. Like when you know you're going to be able to rebase stuff and you're already thinking that far ahead, you then know when to be diligent about your commit messages and not. Whereas if you're not confident with those things yet, you kind of always have to assume your commits are going to get up on master. Just another thing. It's 5 p.m. Okay, that's a normal time to watch a stream. Actually, that's a lovely time. Job. Yeah, this is my job is writing Rails a lot. Well, actually, it's not really. It's writing code, but I don't always get to write Rails stuff. Ending up with React and TypeScript and all those fun things, or any code really. And usually I end up writing no code at all because I have to attend meetings. Like everyone who has a job in software development, you hope it will be working with lots of code, and quite often it's going to meetings. and like all jobs, you just end up in meetings. We have our organization record. It validates a name. That's validated on the database, and it is validated on the model, which is very exciting. And we are going to try and get... Okay, so let's say that we want a basic association between the organizations and the users. So we had said that we were going to validate that with some sort of organization membership model. So that could be something like organization ID. These are the records on that. Organization ID, user ID. Like it could represent just that, joining those two together. It could have something like a role, like we described before, or it could have like a team or something like that we described before. So I think this would get us there. Or we could have so if we had these two, something that represented the organization and something that represented the user, the presence of the record, the existence of the record would represent the membership. So let's give this a name. This is organization membership. But you could also have, and then to remove the membership, you could destroy the record, and so that the existence and destroying of my experience in software development is I've been doing it a long time, but I've been doing it a long time. So I've been doing software development for years, drifting off into design and other bits and bobs, and project management and running companies and stuff like that. So lots of years, but preferably most of it with trying to stick with Ruby, which I enjoy a lot, and I enjoy Rails a lot as well. So that's mainly me. A long time, but experience doesn't mean that I either know anything or I'm really good at it. So yeah, a long time, whatever that means. So we could use the presence of the record as the indication of a membership existing, but we could also have something on here that was that, like it could be, and you could have something as basic as a status, but then you could also want some sort of archive history. So the problem something you have to think about is that if you use the destroying of the membership to indicate that the person has left the organization, you often want to answer audit questions around when did they leave. So if you destroy the record, where are you storing the fact that the person left? Like, is there an audit history table? Is there a versions record? But do the versions get destroyed when the membership gets destroyed? Do you care? Are we asking all of these questions too early? The answer to that is probably yes. But it is really something you want to consider, because even for something could be compliance based where you really care, or it could be something as simple as like just debugging. Sometimes it's really helpful to like, wait, this record doesn't exist, but did it ever exist? Especially if you're using the membership of the organization as like the mechanism for access control. Like, can this person see this thing? If you destroy the record, and so you never know if it existed, but then you believe that the person could see the thing at one point. You're like, oh crap, I really hope an organization membership existed. Or was there a problem where they were able to see stuff they shouldn't have been able to see? Yeah, so you could do a soft delete. So there's, from here in the chat, so you could have a deleted at flag. One of the issues with a deleted at flag can be using a unique index. So you then need an index on the deleted at as well. So if you, and what do I mean by a unique index? So you can place a database constraint that says you can't have two memberships at the same time. So you can't have organization 123 and user ID 456. This can only exist once. So if you set it up like that to begin with and place your constraint over those two fields, if you then try and implement, again, not suggesting that we would do this, I streaming another place. Also see some other comment in video stream. Yeah, so this is on Twitch and on YouTube. So you can see all of the previous streams on YouTube if you look for Sunday Club on YouTube. So yeah, just go back to Perry's point. If you don't think about deleted at initially and then try and add it on, your index could be on these two, and then you would need to make sure that you put this, so this would then be a timestamp of some sort, 2021, and then your audit history would be a series of these, and again you could then put created at on here as well, so your audit history becomes a series of these, which is, again, this would be an actual timestamp of some sort. I can't remember like that, and then this could be like that, and so this membership existed for 2 hours, and then they could create another one, but you might want a separate table for your audit, or just, I don't know if we care about any of that crap right now. Generally don't know if we care about any of that crap right now. Like, do we want to just not worry about this and just build it? Because we haven't really worked out if this is the only mechanism we're going to use. Yeah, we probably do care. Streamlabs. Yes, I use Streamlabs. I use Streamlabs OBS, and it is fine. It's actually a lot better than it used to be. It used to like cause bugs all the time and cause me problems, but it seems a lot better now. And I pay, like, I have to pay money for it, which I constantly forget, but it does a good job. Like, it's like £10 a month. This is like, not only do I not make any money from streaming, but I have to pay to do it, which is like, everyone keeps telling me there's loads of like really rich people streaming on the internet. I'm like, oh wow, good for them. Cost me £10 a month. Do we care about any of these things? Soft deletes are nice, but can get us in a hairy place right quick. Yeah. And also, like, you end up having to care about, like, if you end up at mass scale, like, you actually want, you end up with performance stuff around indexes and all of that fun stuff, and not wanting to have these things. Also, like, other fun-based compliance things where you're like, oh, I want the audit history, but then I need to know that everything related to that user has been deleted for GDPR purposes. Just loads of fun stuff that is not like, we're going too deep. We don't care about any of this crap right now. Let's not worry about any of it and just use the presence of it for now, shall we? And then, like, adding the soft delete or some other mechanism for auditing could be a fun future task. Yeah, because that'll do. Just doesn't feel great. Oh well, fuck it. So the other thing that we get is that when you do a through relationship in Rails, I'm going to start going in a minute. Maybe this is where we pick up next week, actually. Has many through. There is... Yeah, so you might actually... end up, but because we want to use these for access control, potentially maybe we end up more with building an API ourselves rather than being like... So in the scenario that we're ending up in, they've got physician appointment and patient, all that stuff. We would end up with like user organization and organization membership. But rather than putting user.organizations.any or .include or something, we actually might not need that. You might end up with a series of classes whose job is to go and interrogate those. So you might actually not need the... you might not want to reference those directly. Yeah, just trying to think ahead. Okay, but let's just keep going. Let's build some stuff. So we've already got user, right? So create user. Nope, create. Oh wait, aren't they? No, that's just for join tables, right? There's like a naming convention for join tables where it's like one then the other. So like user organization something. Oh, is that just for has and belongs to many? Oh wait. Is that so you Yeah, so we're doing Are we doing a has many through or a has and belongs to many? With no intervening model. No, we want the intervening model, right? Has many belongs. Yeah, so with no intervening model, this association. No, we care about the intervening model. We care about organization membership because we might place roles there. Yeah, we don't actually want to abstract that away to be. No, we care about the intervening model because that's a thing we care about. So organization membership. Because if you end up with an organization membership model, you could sort of have. You could abstract that out to be like teams could join an organization. And then a user could belong to a team that is a member of an organization. All of that fun stuff. And that would then have. Oh, can we use references for these? Is that so? I can't remember the syntax. Is it like user references and organization references? Is that a thing? Did something. Unless user can belong to many orgs. But they should still be able to do that from many org has many users through. Yeah, but I think it works the other way around because I think that if we have the intervening model, a user can still have multiple organization memberships. Right? God, I hate this stuff. Not only that, it's always like day one stuff. They're like, okay, well, the first thing we're gonna do is understand associations, and then you're years in and you're like, oh fuck, I'm still working on basically the same problem that I was in day one of learning this crap. Okay, so references user null false foreign key true. Okay, so we expect those things to be the same. And if we delete an organization or we delete a user, we expect their references, their organization memberships to go away. Yeah, which is true because you just generate not deleting stuff anyway. And then, like I said, we could have something else here in terms of like valid or whatever. Let's not worry about that for now. I think this gets us where we want to go. Like, unless user can belong to many orgs, I think that's still the case in this. I think we can just have multiple organization memberships. Let's go get this done. Right. Okay. I'm going to give us another 5 minutes because I am just aware that I've got to go and pick up this this thing. So actually, if we've only got 5 minutes, maybe we should take a look at what we want to tackle next. Let's just get this done and committed. What did we do on in the model? Oh, we've done this. Okay, so add test for this model. That can get moved into creating the model. It's such a basic one. Oh, damn it. Both. Okay, so add membership. I'm not going to put in a commission because I think we're going to have to come back and redo that stuff anyway later. Okay, so we're going to get into the weeds of it now. This is pretty good. So then we'll say that an organization can have many members or users through memberships, whatever we want to decide to put it. And, oh, crap. Don't need to save that. And then we can say a user has many organization memberships. And I don't even know if we ever need to interrogate the final result. We don't care that, like, it's only in that access control point where we're just like, do you have this organization membership? We don't really ever need you to bring back user.organizations. I guess we can always do that manually. Okay, 214 it is. Right, let's go back to our Notion board. Let's wrap things up. So we know how we're going to tackle this. And what are we actually we can answer this on here. So like what's next? Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to finish users and organizations via an organization membership. We don't need a UI here. We're happy doing this in the console, because if you remember what that gem had, it had like invitation, or maybe it was bullet train had like invitations in it, which is always the idea where it's like you're usually not just creating the membership, because let's say you want to create a membership, often you don't have that user first. So you're like, hey, Bob, we want you to come and work on this event for us, but we need to invite you to it. So that's why I just think we can skip all of that complexity for now. Then we can have, we want to create the concept of an event, which is something we've managed to avoid for a surprisingly long time, considering it's an event registration system. Allow organizations to have many events. And we kind of want to think about like, what are the constraints placing around event. So what do I mean by that? I mean that we've already talked about when we looked at like some of the stuff we're going to bump into. We looked around like multi-date, recurring, things like that. Like just even calling it event. What happens if it's spread over 2 or 3 days? Should there actually be should there be event instance or something like that? Allow organizations to have many events, things like that. Right. Okay. I've got to go because I've got to go and pick up this this coffee table. Thank you to everyone in the chat today. I might try and get another stream up for the UI design stuff during the week if possible. That will be in an evening, I'm not sure. And if not, I will definitely see whoever is around next Sunday at 10:30 a.m. UK time. Remember, you can watch these anytime on YouTube if you're interested. And they stick up for a while on Twitch. I don't know how long they're there. And yeah, we're starting to get somewhere. We're starting to build an application. And eventually we will run an event and we will all be able to book tickets onto it and do all of that fun stuff. So have a wonderful week, everybody. Yeah, have a great time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.